How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how to make your own latex Halloween items. I've shown you videos on me recreating the bite-sized clown and the Reaper of Souls, but today I want to show you something that I have done that is my own design. Well, technically they're all my own designs, but this is an original idea here. So I came up with this sketch here, and it's some sort of a toxic mutant rat thing, and I wanted it to be somewhat small because just for simplicity purposes, but I thought it'd be a great opportunity to go ahead and video everything that I do to turn this into this. So this was the original design here, and you can see it's somewhat true to how the finished product is, but I really wanted to make sure that I have these weird spine ridges that sort of look like a dinosaur in some sort of a way. And I want them to just be ribbed-like, as well as making sure that he has a bunch of gash marks and some boils. I was inspired by the Distortions Unlimited Dirty Rat animatronic that they sell. I love the boils on that thing. It's so creepy looking. I wanted him to have some sort of elongated, like, claws, talons. That's kind of hard to do with the latex, for me at least. And some sharp, jagged looking teeth as well. I wanted like blacked out eyes and some rather long pointed like ears here. So this was the original design, and let me take you along on the journey of sculpting, plastering, and painting this mutant rat thing.
So just like with any latex piece, it all starts off with the clay sculpture, and right now I'm just really trying to get the main details that I want blocked in here. I really want the spine area to look really hunched over, like he's in an attack position. Here you can see I'm putting in his rear feet as well as the tail. I'm making the tail a part of the main mold and not it free flowing or freestanding, just so that it's easier when it comes time to cast it in the plaster mold. Here I'm really trying to stay true to the original drawing, but there's something with the face that I was not quite liking so far, so I decided to put that aside, and I went back to the spine area to give him those weird looking like Stegosaurus type vibe, these weird ribs on the back of his like spine. I don't really know exactly what they're meant to be, but I just thought it looked cool. Again, still trying to figure out what's up with the front of the face here. He looks like an alligator to me at this point, and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing. So I eventually tear it down, slice it off, try to do something to make it look more like a rat. And you see in the back I have a rat there as a reference to try and simulate to the sculpture. You can see here it's finally starting to take some sort of a shape of a generic rat. I'm also adding some ears. Right now they're a little small, but I end up going back and making them a lot bigger. You can see some time has passed now. He kind of looks like a chihuahua now, with just how the mouth structure looks and the snout, but I think it really looks kind of freaky as it is, because it's sort of like a mutant creature, like a radioactive waste, deformed sort of a creature thing. And this is the finished sculpture. It's coated in a brown spray paint, and that's to make it easier to come out of the mold once we coat it in the plaster. So the next step is plastering the mold, and this is just me mixing up the plaster here with some water, and it's #1 pottery plaster from USG. And the first step here is painting a thin layer of plaster over the entire sculpture, making sure to use a brush to get the plaster into all the crevices and the details. And then once that starts to harden up, you're able to just layer on the plaster in thick layers. You can see me kind of just waiting around here, and that's because the plaster is still a little too runny, but over time it starts to thicken up, and then you can see right here I'm finally able to start coating it on in thicker layers. So here is the first latex pull. I poured in latex and let it dwell for about 4 hours, this one, and then I dump out all the latex that is still a liquid, and this is what's left. And right here I'm putting in some plaster to reduce the stickiness, because if you don't do this, the latex will stick to itself when you try to pull it out. So I'm just blowing that around. And here is the first pull. I am pretty happy with this one. It looks pretty clean. There's not a lot of clay that was left in there, so I cleaned out the mold pretty good. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this one. So next off is to paint. But before painting, we gotta trim off all the flashing. So this is me just going around and cutting off all the extra latex, so it's just a nice clean finished product. So for this one, I have the idea of a purple and a gray paint combination. So I'm wanting to paint the ribs on the back, as well as like the tail and the paws and stuff, in a purplish color. And then here is the mixture of the actual base paint, which is going to be a gray. It's 1/3 latex house paint, 1/3 mask making latex, and 1/3 water. This gives the paint its properties to be able to be flexible, to flex along with the flexible latex. So this is just me mixing that together. Since I use an airbrush, I run it through a filter, because I've had many problems with little chunks of latex clogging up the little sprayer in the past, so that's what the filter's for. So I coated the entire rat in a base color of the gray, and now I'm doing some spattering with some washes. This is a blue inked wash right here to give it some texture, try to make it look a little more alive and not just one color. I think the most important thing with anything like this is to put a lot of layers in the composition, because I think that's how you achieve like what looks real. And then here is the purple going on the ribs, or not the ribs, but the spine area. Also putting it in the ears and around the tail. I sculpted in some boils to make it look just like, I don't know, a reaction to the skin, and I really like how these come out. So I paint it with a base layer of a yellowish tan first, and then I go back with a reddish ink, and that gives it a glossy looking appearance and just a little bit of a gradient to it as well. So I'm really happy with how those came out. And you can see here, this is the red ring of the ink going around the boils. For its teeth, I'm just dry brushing some tannish gray color on the teeth here to accentuate them. The eyes here are painted black, and that's just with acrylic ink. So one of the final steps is coating it in some washes, and this is just acrylic ink mixed with rubbing alcohol, and you let that dry for a little bit, and then I will take a sponge here and wipe off all the excess, and that sponge is soaking in just some more rubbing alcohol. So this is a quick way to get all the details to be easily shown. Really what this does is over exaggerate all of the little details, because when you think about it, this stuff is probably going to be in a dark environment. So you want to over accentuate all of the little crevices and stuff just to make the finished product a little more appealing to the eye. So the wash that I just did previously was a reddish brown mixture. Now I'm going in with just a black wash, and this is going to be the main final thing that I do for this item. So I just spray it on with the airbrush, let it dry for a minute or two, and then wipe off the excess with the rubbing alcohol. A final step is to use some of this gloss medium gel, and I paint it on anywhere that I think should look a little glossy, a little wet. So I paint it on the teeth and the gum lines, as well as the boils, and I also put a little bit on the eyes as well as the nails on the paws. And then finally, this is the blood for the little scar marks that are on him. This is just food coloring mixed with that gloss gel, and it dries a glossy texture, so it still looks wet even though it's already dried, and it really is like one of the best ways to insinuate fake blood.
So here is our finished product here. This is the one that you saw in that time-lapse video of me painting. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. You can totally see a difference in the original design and what came out here. You can see that the teeth seem to go a lot farther back, as well as the entire jaw or mouth area itself. He has a much more like sharp front of the face. I think this thing looks more like a chihuahua of some kind, especially at the front here, and well as like depicting the rat at the tail end. But I think I captured the ribs and the tail area very well here. This part I'm really happy with. This part I took some creative liberties from the original design, but I still kept the dark, empty, soulless like eyes in here. They're a little more flattened and horizontal than a bit of a diagonal on it here. But I'd say overall, for a first piece of like my very own creation, I'm very happy with this. This is the first paint job that I did. I also went ahead and gave it a different paint job. This one has red eyes, a little more blood in the mouth area, pink nose and pink like feet and stuff. And then I gave it some gradients on the ribs here. Still has the boils and stuff, but the tail is pink, more of a generic looking typical like rat in terms of coloring, I think here. So that is the start and the finish for this little rat project thing that I have done here today. Hopefully this video gives you all some insight on what it takes to create your own latex items from start to finish. This is the same for anything basically, masks, hands, gloves, all that sort of stuff. It's all a similar process. Some things can be a little more complicated than others. If you have to do something where there's like a 2-part mold, this was just a 1-part mold. It's simpler for a beginner. If you have any questions, please comment them down below. But that is all from me today. I want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.